Good morning, 8th graders. Happy Tuesday. Today we are going to talk a little bit more about genre. We are also going to be close reading an article that goes along with our hero unit. So today you're going to need your notebook and sketchnoting materials. Also, if you have a printer, you might want to print the article. I find it's easier to do close reading when you can actually hold it, highlight, write on the paper. But that's not something that you need to do. Okay, again, looking at this, our language and literature planner. Today is Tuesday, so we are still talking about heroism and close reading. Here is the slide deck for today, the article that we will be reading, the instructions for an assignment that we're going to be starting today and that we will do periodically throughout the year called Article of the Week. And then you're going to, for homework, watch this video. It's about another everyday hero like yesterday's. And then you're going to read your outside reading novel for 25 minutes. Okay, so first thing, today we are talking about novels in verse. And novels in verse is a novel-length story. So it's a story like a book, but it's told through poetry rather than prose. So it's written like a poem. It doesn't have a lot of paragraphs, punctuation, things like that. Either simple or complex stanzas may be used, but there will usually be many characters, dialogue, and action in a novelistic manner. Some examples that I listed there are Long Way Down, which is the first one right there, House Arrest, Inside Out and Back Again, and Out of the Dust. I put 3 of my favorites here. I just started reading novels in verse like a year or 2 ago, and they're truly amazing. The authors have to get out their story in as few words as possible, so they choose them wisely, and they are usually just like absolute beautiful works of art. So right now, I want you to go ahead and pause your videos and go ahead and sketch note novels in verse. When you are finished with that, go ahead and unpause. So pause. Okay. So hopefully you paused and did your sketch notes this night. I'm now going to talk about A Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. That's our book talk for today. I actually don't have a copy with me. They're all at school. But when I was making this slideshow, I was reminded of how amazing this book is. This book, the entire book kind of takes place in 60 seconds. It's about a boy whose brother was killed due to gun violence. And in his neighborhood, when someone you love is killed by gun violence, your pretty much only choice is to get revenge. So he has a gun. He's going up to the person who allegedly killed his brother's home to kill him. And during the course of this elevator ride, he is visited by the ghosts of other people he knew that died of gun violence, and talking about like what their stories were and things like that. That gives him a lot to think about. So it's an amazing book. Highly recommend it. I do have a few copies in the classroom, so if you are interested in checking that out, email me and I will leave it in the office for you. All right. So that is our second. Oh no, we have 2 more genres that we're going to go over. All right, now we are going to be talking about close reading. So what is close reading? You've probably heard the term before and have probably done it in other classes. When we close read, we dive right into the text. We don't do a lot of pre-reading activities to get us ready for reading. You read the passage at least twice. You read with a pencil and a highlighter. Okay, and that's why I think it'd be better if you're able to print the article, but if not, it's not a big deal. You notice things that are confusing and interesting. And I left off a word there. I will fix that later. So you're looking for things that like don't make a lot of sense to you, things you really enjoy, things like particular passages like that. You also make connections to other things that you've read, you've seen, you know of. So you're making connections. You're discussing the reading with other people, and you're also responding to text-dependent questions. Okay, so those are kind of all the factors, or a lot of the factors that go on with close reading. Once we start doing article of the week, which I guess we're starting right now, we're going to do 2 steps today. The first step is to read the article quietly to yourself. You're going to read slowly for enjoyment. You're not putting any pressure on yourself to make sure you understand everything perfectly. You're just breaking the surface. You're reading to enjoy the article and the information. Like, oh, that's interesting, to get a feel for it. You're also paying attention, even if you don't fully understand the structure of the article, any tables or maps or charts that might be a part of the article. Okay. And then you're going to reread the article to yourself. While you read, you're going to do the following. With your second reading, you're going to get more information and gain a better understanding. And today I am actually going to do the second read with you so that you can just follow along and you can do more of the close reading aspects, such as highlighting the parts you find interesting or get you thinking. When you go to the article, it's on a website called Common Lit. There are actually like note-taking and highlighting tools in the website so you'll be able to do that electronically if you don't print it with the article or with the website. Okay, so you're going to highlight the parts that you find interesting or really important or that just get you thinking. You're going to underline the words you don't know, and then you're going to underline the parts of the article that you don't understand. So if you read a whole sentence or a little blurb and you're like, what the heck does that mean? Then you're going to underline that area. You're going to write in the margins questions that you have, your thoughts and feelings as you read the article. And then the last part are symbols. So this is where it kind of relates to sketchnoting a little bit. These are just symbols that I use a lot. You can make up your own symbols. You can use whatever you want. So I put a star when something is really important or there's something I want to come back to. I put an exclamation point where something is super surprising or interesting or kind of just like, wow. Happy and sad faces for something you like or dislike, or you find something happy or sad. And a question mark next to things that you don't understand. Okay, so those are some of the important skills for close reading when you're doing your second read through. All right, next, here is another link to the article. So you're going to click here. You're going to read the article. Again, you're just breaking the surface. You're just reading for enjoyment. The story is super interesting and just paying attention to the picture or sorry, I just looked at a picture, the article itself. So right now I want you to pause your video, please, and read the article to yourself. All right, so maybe now you are finished reading the article. Now you're going to read the article again. And like I said, I'm going to read it aloud so that you can follow along. And as you follow along, you're highlighting, you're underlining, you're using symbols, you're writing in the margins, you're underlining parts. Okay, and if you, for me, never mind, I'm going to actually not say that right now. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and read the article. So please follow along with me as I read. So the title of the article is "The Real Hacksaw Ridge Soldier Saved 75 Souls Without Carrying a Gun." The United States entered World War II after the Japanese launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, December 7, 1941. Soon after, young men and women from around the world pledged to aid their nation. The Pacific Theater was fought between the U.S. and its allies against the Japanese, with most major battles taking place on small islands in the Pacific Ocean. The following text discusses Desmond Doss's contributions to the Battle of Okinawa as a conscientious objector, someone who objects to serving in the armed forces or bearing arms for reasons of conscience, such as religious or moral reasons. As you read, take notes on how people's attitudes towards Doss changed over time. Desmond Doss is credited with saving 75 soldiers during one of the bloodiest battles of World War II in the Pacific, and he did it without carrying a weapon. The Battle of Hacksaw Ridge on the island of Okinawa was a close combat fight with heavy weaponry. Thousands of Americans and Japanese soldiers were killed, and the fact that Doss survived the battle and saved so many lives has confounded and awed those who know his story. Now he's the subject of a new film directed by Mel Gibson called Hacksaw Ridge. A quiet, skinny kid from Lynchburg, Virginia, Doss was a Seventh-day Adventist who wouldn't touch a weapon or work on the Sabbath. He enlisted in the Army as a combat medic because he believed in the cause, but he had vowed not to kill. The Army wanted nothing to do with him. He just didn't fit into the Army's model of what a good soldier would be, says Terry Benedict, who made a documentary about Doss called The Conscientious Objector. The Army made Doss's life during training. It started out as harassment and then it became abusive, Benedict says. He interviewed several World War II veterans who were in Doss's battalion. They considered him a pest, questioned his sincerity, and threw shoes at him while he prayed. They just saw him as a slacker, the filmmaker said, someone who shouldn't have been allowed in the Army, and somebody who was their weakest link in the chain. Okay, going on to the next page. Doss's commanding officer, Captain Jack Glover, tried to get him transferred. In the documentary, Glover says Doss told him, "Don't ever doubt my courage, because I will be right by your side, saving life, while you take life." Glover's response, "You're not going to be by my damn side if you don't have a gun." But hard as they tried, the Army couldn't force Doss to use a weapon. A 1940 law allowed conscientious objectors to serve the war effort in non-combatant positions. So Doss went with his company as a medic to the Pacific Theater. And at Okinawa in the spring of 1945, Doss's company faced a grueling task: climb a steep, jagged cliff, sometimes called Hacksaw Ridge, to a plateau where thousands of heavily armed Japanese soldiers were waiting for them. The terrain was treacherous. It was full of caves and holes, and the Japanese were dug in underground, says Mel Gibson, who recreated the battle in Hacksaw Ridge. The Japanese called it the Rain of Steel because there was so much iron flying around. Under a barrage of gunfire and explosions, Doss crawled on the ground from wounded soldier to wounded soldier. He dragged severely injured men to the edge of the ridge, tied a rope around their bodies, and lowered them down to the medics below. In Benedict's documentary, Doss says, "I was praying the whole time. I just kept praying, Lord, please help me get one more." Veteran Carl Bentley, who was also at Hacksaw Ridge, says in the documentary, "It's as if God had his hand on Doss's shoulder. It's the only explanation I can give." Doss saved 75 men, including his captain, Jack Glover, over a 12-hour period. The same soldiers who had shamed him now praised him. He was one of the bravest persons alive, Glover says in the documentary. And then to have him end up saving my life was the irony of the whole thing. President Harry Truman awarded Doss the Medal of Honor in 1945. He died in 2006. All right, so while I was reading that, you should have been doing a lot of these steps, highlighting, underlining, making notes, writing symbols in your text. And again, if it's on a screen, I know that's a little bit harder. But in this case, you might also just want to take some notes on a piece of paper if you have your screen right there. All right, so going back up to our agenda for today, after reading this article twice, you are finished with your schoolwork. So now you need to read for 25 minutes at some point today, and then also watch this short video about Richard Miles helping former prisoners get jobs and new lives. Okay, thank you so much. Have an amazing rest of your day.